Hi, I'm Rob Mello, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the hotel fire that occurred at the Hotel Roosevelt in Jacksonville, Florida in 1963. All right, here's some background location information. Like I said before, it was at the Hotel Roosevelt in Jacksonville, Florida, which was a 13-story building, and the fire occurred on December 29th, 1963, and fire was first reported at 7:45 a.m. in the morning. Here's some further background. Like I said, it was a 13-story building with two enclosed stairwells. There was a large ballroom on the first floor, which was also the main floor for the building. There were multiple remodeling projects that were done on this room throughout the years and throughout the hotel itself. And there were 479 guests present when the fire occurred. And a little bit of a timeline for the fire background. Fire was first detected by staff at 7:45 in the morning. The building was engulfed in smoke within 3 minutes of this first being noticed, and there was a rush to escape with all the smoke filling up the hallways and rooms. And for exit routes, that was the enclosed stairwells, one of which became filled with smoke from a vent opening up into it. Another exit route was windows. Some people tied their bed sheets together and attempted to exit out the windows. And the elevators were another choice of exit route, but due to the power being shut off as soon as the fire was reported by the city, for some reason shut off the power to the building, elevators were not operational, and it's best to not use elevators in the case of a fire. All right, so first part of the fire investigation would be the origin and the cause of the fire. And during the investigation, the origin of the fire was determined to be the ceiling of the ballroom, and the cause of the fire was never confirmed, but it was thought to have started from faulty wiring. All right. And first, to investigate any negligence possible, if the hotel maybe knew about issues beforehand and just didn't let anybody know. A little background research revealed that the hotel management was attempting to be proactive in their approach for safety. They had replaced some combustible partitions that were previously in the ballroom through the advice of their insurance provider, which was United States Fidelity and Guarantee Company, who sent safety inspectors out to inspect the building and recommend any issues to be resolved or anything like that. They also replaced combustible drapes in the ballroom. Even though they were a large fancy piece, they just were very hazardous in the case of a fire, so they replaced those. And they were trying to do their best in order to mitigate any circumstances that could result in a fire. In the construction, so the ballroom's walls were constructed of metal lath and plaster, while the ceiling was composed of anodized acoustic aluminum with glass fiber batting that was used as insulation. And there were numerous remodeling projects that had occurred in the Hotel Roosevelt's ballroom over the years, and these remodeling and redecorating projects resulted in many concealed spaces left in the ballroom's drop ceilings. So when they redid the ceiling, instead of taking the old ceiling down, they just left at least 2 layers of old ceiling above the new ceiling that they put in. And it wasn't visible from the ground level floor. And while I was reading an NFPA fire news report that came out later the next year, described the situation as difficult for a fire inspector to become aware of the disaster potential created by the arrangement of the concealed spaces and vertical shafts in the building. So yeah, it's just very hard to see all these concealed spaces or even know what these concealed spaces consisted of. And all right, about 5 feet below the roof and 2 feet above the metal ceiling, there was an old metal lathe and plaster ceiling where combustible fiberboard acoustic tile was held together with combustible mastic. So 2 old construction materials, both deemed combustible, were present on that concealed ceiling above the visible ceiling. And 16 large vent shafts were present that went all the way from the first floor up to the attic above the 13th floor. And these large shafts were 5 feet by 2 feet, so these were very large shafts. Okay, and there was only two small vents on the roof to ventilate the whole building where all these shafts released. And yeah. All right, so about these ventilation shafts, 14 of the 16 ventilation shafts had openings at all the floors above them, and or access openings on each of these 13 floors above. These access points included corridors, bedrooms, closets of bedrooms, and even bathrooms. And even one of the stairwells had an opening on it and suffered smoke damage and had a lot of smoke fill it up due to that opening. All right. And majority of these openings were covered by plywood that was not fully secured, so there was just a lot of air openings for that smoke to be able to get into. And yeah, next slide. After the fire began on the first floor in the ballroom, it remained unnoticed for a period of time. It's not sure exactly how long, could be 10, 15 minutes, where thick black smoke began to fill these large vents and quickly engulf the attic, where those two vents in the attic were trying their best to get all the smoke out, but they just eventually gave. And the pressure from all this smoke in the vents began to quickly engulf all of the floors. Once they started releasing, the vents in the attic stopped venting out the smoke, and all the smoke began filling the floors of all 13 floors of the building. And yep, and so once this occurred, the smoke took the path of least resistance, like I was saying, and no sprinkler protection were accounted for that I could read about. Although the site, a newspaper article from December 30th, 1963, in Jacksonville did confirm that the hotel was in compliance with all state and local fire hazards regulations when this occurred. Okay, and for the aftermath, the fire was extinguished at 9:30 in the morning, so it lasted a little less than 2 hours. And a total of 475 guests were rescued with little to no injuries. And meanwhile, 20 people died of asphyxiation from this thick black smoke. And while one emergency responder died of cardiac arrest while attempting to fight the fire, and one other person attempting to climb out a window to descend to their safety was using tied up bed sheets. A woman fell to her death as well. So in total, 22 people died due to this tragedy. And the property damage was also extensive. The Hotel Roosevelt closed and never reopened from that point. And after that, throughout the years, renovations occurred to attempt to get the building back into a usable state, and it's now known as the Carling, which is an upscale apartment building. Okay, and the consequences and legacy of this event. Marie Hill, who was present during the fire, lost her husband to the fire, brought a lawsuit against the U.S. Fidelity and Guarantee Company, the insurance provider, and she brought an initial case, which was denied, then appealed, where the decision of the lower court was reversed. And in this case, the plaintiff argues the insurance company conducted numerous safety engineering inspections of the hotel prior to the fire and was therefore liable for not alerting the Hotel Roosevelt and its staff and guests to the possibility of this fire occurring. The city of Jacksonville and the Jacksonville Fire Department were also cleared of liability in the most recent case I read about in 2016 from about 40 victims' families. And the lawsuit was seeking $10 million in total damages from the fire. And that's it. Here's my references. All right. Thank you all for your time.